live events. Now you guys can actually hear me. So let me start again. Technology challenges are fun, aren't they? So listen, I really want to appreciate those of you that have shown up for the live event today. This is an experiment on several levels. The first is this is the first live on YouTube and the first live on LinkedIn. And if the technology does what it says it's supposed to do, it's also live on Twitter. So I came across this wonderful software package called StreamYard. Oh, lost me again. Still having audio problems. We're going to get it. We're going to get it. I'm not giving up. I'm not taking no for an answer. Maybe echo cancellation. We'll turn off the echo cancellation. And how about we turn off the adjust mic volume? We'll just turn it up. You guys can turn me down if I'm too loud. So this software that I came across is called StreamYard, and it lets you simultaneously stream across platforms. So I thought, hey, why do this one by one when you can do them all at once, right? I mean, let's all get together. I can see the comments from each of the platforms. Thanks, Christian and Taha. Thanks you guys for being here. Really appreciate you jumping in. I'm just going to run through the framework, and I put together a little presentation to share what I've been working on for the last couple of months. I came up with this idea of mistakes, and earlier part of this year, this idea just hit me and I had to do something with it. So I've started AI mistakes, and I have to be honest, the foundation of AI mistakes is this framework thing that I came up with. So look, so that we don't run out of time, let me just go ahead and jump into it. And you guys can ask questions as we go. I love seeing comments. I'll address them as I run through the presentation, but let's get started. All right, so here's the deal. AI's been around for a while. It's actually not a brand new thing. But we've all seen mistakes, right? Like my favorite is making AI art. And last year, this new software from Stability AI got released, and it could make these graphics. Now, DALL-E actually came well before this software package did, but this is the one I've spent the most time with. And it's not particularly pretty. It's actually a little bit ugly, but there's also a lot of artifacts and properties in the diagram, in the photo, that don't make any sense. And I would say that's a mistake, right? Well, it goes much deeper than that, because not only do the machine models, the artificial intelligence that we're using to provide the art, create the responses, people make mistakes with AI too. And in fact, this is something that we've already experienced. In fact, it doesn't even have to do with AI. And we'll come back to that a little bit later, but I think there is a lot that we can learn from today without even having to touch the AI. But I want to talk about AI because that has something to do with the mistakes framework. Okay, so if you look at social media, okay, you're going to come across something that just makes you go, what in the world is going on? And this was really the first one that I came across. Back in May, this guy, Chris, had a marketer call him up and asking about this quote. And so this journalist is trying to quote this marketer, and he goes to Google and he can't find the quote, but he's seen the quote in ChatGPT. So he calls up the marketer and is like, hey, I want to quote you. Yeah, AI completely fabricated that quote. Didn't happen. Total hallucination. And this is the kind of thing that can happen. But it's worse because there are humans that are out there looking this stuff up, and they're citing fake information. Like, the lawyer's job is to show up in court and cite facts and make a solid case in a court of law, and they're using things that come out of an AI chatbot? How does this even happen? Boy, if that's not an AI mistake, I don't know what is. You can't just go off the cuff right? There's real value in making sure that not only do you have the right facts, but not jumping to conclusions and just trusting the technology. There's been so many of these that I could probably spend the entire hour just showing you tweets from people and machines that you just go, what happened there? Some of them are quite funny. This one was a particular favorite of mine. Someone actually was able to use ChatGPT, which, of course, OpenAI is working directly with Microsoft, and they were able to generate Windows 10 licensing keys. Is that not funny or what? I mean, because there's a lot of effort that goes into licensing these operating systems. Here's another lawyer that, again, was filing something, and the judge was like, what are you doing? You can't come into court with this fake legal research and claim it. It's just not a thing. Probably the funniest, though, was someone was working on if the AI could actually help with a CAPTCHA test. And funnily enough, the AI response was, wait a second, is this a CAPTCHA? I can't help you with that. So perhaps not so much a mistake on the behalf of the AI. It actually acknowledged it. But these are the kinds of things that we have to be concerned about as we're trying to use the AI and do something useful. You know, there's so many opportunities with any technology, and the truth is, it doesn't matter what the technology is. People are going to do really great things with the tech, and they're going to do really bad things with the tech, and it's always been this way. It really doesn't matter what the technology is, because technology really, when you get to its core, is a tool. So why am I talking about all of this? The reality is that mistakes with AI happen, and we can't ignore them because there are real consequences to our actions. Not only that, but we have to understand that it's not only our actions, but it's the actions of the artificial intelligence that makes the difference. It's the responsibility of the human, and we've seen this in case after case after case. AI-generated art cannot be copyrighted because it's made by the machine. It has to be attributed to a person, and they're even coming up with new rules of engagement in terms of how much the human has to be involved in order for it to be copyrighted. But ultimately, we have to take responsibility for the work that is coming out of the machine one way or the other. And so we need to think about, how do we do that? And the reason this matters is there are people that are studying the use of AI and what it means to where we are today, both in terms of society, in terms of how we get work done. There's some really amazing information that's already available today. Now, this tweet was taken actually from today because Rowan, not only was he talking about this Harvard study that came out just a few days ago and really provided some very raw data for us to look at in terms of, does this AI stuff matter? But also, what happens when people use the AI? And in some cases, it was really good. But in some cases, it was not so good. Because it turns out if you blindly rely on the tool, bad things are going to happen. But we can do this the right way. You know, not only are we talking about using the AI in a useful way, but like all technologies, we can do a lot of work and not get a lot of value out of it. Now, that's been my own personal experience as a technology professional. And here's a great example. Now, I love to follow Ethan Mollick. He's a professor of business and technology. Really love the things that he's sharing. But in this case, he was echoing a sentiment that I've had for quite some time. And it is that to get value out of this cutting edge AI, you don't even have to build your own model. In fact, if we just use the tools that are already available, tools like ChatGPT, Bard, Bing Chat, Anthropic, there are so many large models that can really help you do some incredible things without having to do any customization whatsoever. So don't make the mistake of thinking that this is a complicated thing that you have to spend months or hours or days to figure out. There's a shortcut, and it is simply that using the right tool, okay? And that's what we're going to talk about with the mistakes framework. My tagline is learn from mistakes with AI because it's overloaded. Not only are we going to be using AI, but we have a goal in mind. There's more to it than simply making mistakes. And so I want to help you understand what this means. So I'm going to take you through the framework. And the reason I'm going to take you through the framework is that every day there's a new tool. I can try to show you the most recent tools, but the truth is there's a new tool all the time. And so what you need is not somebody to show up and write the tweet or the LinkedIn post or even the YouTube video of 10 AI tools you can't live without, because that's going to change practically every day. What you need is a framework to help you understand what is it that you're trying to do. So when you take on the AI, it's actually creating value. I know a little bit about this because I've spent the last 25 years creating value with technology. And to be honest, I wasn't always good at it. I needed those 25 years to get really good at understanding how to create the value. So here's the value that I want to share with you today. It's the mistakes framework. And this framework is really the tool that you can use to apply all of these great technology things that we have today. And it goes well beyond artificial intelligence. But the essence of the framework is creating value so you can be successful at whatever it is that you want to do. And that's what's so great about this framework. It's a composite of so many things and has so much utility that I just had to share it. So, mistakes is capitalized because we're talking about an acronym, and I'm going to take you through each letter of the acronym. The first is M for map. So what does it mean to map? Well, when we talk about mapping, anytime we set upon a new thing, and whatever that new thing may be, if you're, let's say you're a startup and you want to serve your customers, you want to bring in a new capability, there's a little bit of effort involved in making that happen. You can't just shoot from the hip. You've got to really think about what it is that you're trying to do. And the best place to start is with a map. Now, this is probably less relevant analogy than it would have been a few years ago because, honestly, all of us pull out the smartphone, and I'm a big fan of Waze, as a matter of fact, and it has a map on the little display, but it's not like the big paper map that we had a few years ago. But you really needed a map. But look, if you were going to go on a long journey, even with the smartphone today, you needed a map to make sure that you knew where you were going and how you were going to get there. Even if you took it out at the last minute, you needed a little bit of a plan, okay? And that's what a map does for us. It helps us to understand the environment. Where is your destination? What are you trying to do? And what are the tools that you need along the way in order to be successful in that? Now, if you like the military analogies, and I certainly do because I'm a student of all of the military things that have happened over history. In particular, I spend a lot of time listening to all sorts of insights in history about World War II because it's something that interests me personally. But if you think about things in terms of battle, right? When you're coming up with a plan of attack, you need to understand a number of factors about the battlefield. It's not enough to say, shoot the other guy. I mean, at its core, that is one of the things that you have to do because it's kill or be killed, quite frankly. But you need to understand not only where you are, but where you're going, what are you trying to do, and you have to impart that to the people that are doing the work. So contextualizing is really at the core of mapping. It gives you the orientation to the situation. That's fundamental. But that's also not enough. Just having the map to look at doesn't tell you what you need to be successful. The part that you have to understand from phase one, absolute beginning, is who am I serving? Why do they need this? Because if you don't understand that core need, it's going to be really difficult to be successful. Sure, accidents happen. Sure, mistakes happen. And you might even fumble into the right answer. But don't rely on chance. Come in with a little bit of a plan. Even if you don't use the plan throughout the entire execution of what you're building, you're going to learn something through this process. The whole point of mapping is coming into this with a strategy for achieving a successful outcome. Because the truth is, none of us goes after a thing to fail. And look, between us here, the reality is the difference between success and failure. When it doesn't work, did you give up and walk away? Because that's what failure is. And if you don't walk away, that means you want success. And if you want success, you want to find the shortest path to get there. So start with mapping. Okay, so next up is investigate. Now, listen, I'm a researcher at heart. It's part of who I am. So this one in particular, I have to go into detail on because I don't know how to not do this. The question we have to answer is, what is the right amount of investigation? What is the necessary research level that is required for you to move forward? I think more often than not the answer is less than you think, but the way to know this is you have to dig into it. You can't set it up front and just know what it is. The most recent example I can think of where I was very much research oriented in my personal life was buying a car. Like, that's a big commitment. Anytime you buy a vehicle, I mean, for most people, buying a vehicle is a major portion of their income. And you really don't want to make the mistake of buying a car that's the wrong choice, because that has major financial implications. So when I went out to identify what the car was going to be, I did tons of research. I went out and bought magazines on cars. I read research reports. I watched video reviews, because little things really annoy me. And so the first and foremost is I wanted to offset those annoyances. But the biggest implication was I didn't want to overpay, and I didn't want to buy the wrong car for my family. Because even though this was more than a decade ago, look, I had to get the right car. I think I made the right decision because I've had that car for a decade and the other one for a few years longer than that. I don't like buying cars. It's just not my thing. I'd rather buy a computer instead. That's where I live. It's what I do. But when we talk about research, there's sort of some core things that you need to take into consideration. And I think there's three important things in the investigation phase that are really valuable. The first is making sure that you have an understanding of what it is that you're going after. You have to really know that the problem that you're trying to solve is the right problem to solve. And the only way to do that is to really deeply understand the problem. And so you have to ask more questions. So the way to inform your approach is simply to ask more questions than you think are really needed. As a technologist, I love the shiny objects, right? I got into tech because I love playing with the stuff. But the reality is, if you just like playing with the stuff, that may not actually solve a problem. So this is a reaction to all of the lessons I've learned over the last 25 years of, wow, that's really cool. What can we do with that? Stop asking that. Yeah, it's really cool. Stop there. Ask the question, what problem are we trying to solve? Start with the problem. That really is the best way to do this. If you start with a problem, you may not find that fun, cool technology is actually the right answer. And I can really have a challenge to count the number of times I've had a conversation about a technology, and the outcome was, yeah, this is probably not the right way to use this technology. It's cool and it does some neat things, but for the problem that we're addressing, this just isn't the right answer. By starting with the problem, you can more easily identify, is this something that's really worth my time? And this is a secret to unlocking value. because you get the value from solving the problem, not by using a tech. All right, so now we're on to the S, the first S in mistakes. So we're going to sketch. I really love that the acronym uses sketch because I really fell in love with this word a few years ago on a couple of different levels. My wife is a graphic artist, and as a graphic artist, she literally has a sketchbook, and anything that she works on, she starts with the sketchbook. And the sketchbook is really just a way to capture a lot of different ideas before you really get deeply into the work and start building. The computer tools get better and better all the time, and so perhaps at some point the value of a sketch will get lost because you can simply type a prompt into a computer. But the reality is, typing a prompt into a computer is a form of sketch. It allows you to more deeply think about the concept. It allows you to ideate about the possibilities. And it can help you work through what it is that you're trying to do. Oftentimes, we get an idea and we think we've solved it the moment we have an idea. But the truth is, ideas are cheap. It's not the ideas that matter, it's the execution. So the sooner you can identify if an idea is worth pursuing, the more successful you're going to be. And that's what the sketch phase is really all about. Now, the other thing about this idea of a sketch isn't just that you're doing the act of trying to realize and conceptualize. It's also that you're working with others. See, the truth is, if you're trying to solve a problem for someone, it's really valuable to start working with someone that has that problem. We get excited about our solution and we think we've done something great, but then when you put it in front of someone that actually has that problem and you ask them, hey, does this look like a good solution to your problem? You're going to get a reaction. And once again, in my experience, that solution that you built, that you spent hundreds of hours engineering, writing code, developing an application, or even worse, building a physical thing, which is even harder, only to find out that you didn't solve the problem that they had, that's really frustrating. In fact, of all of the things that I've worked on in my 25 years, building the wrong thing is probably the most regrettable. Now look, I'm a tech guy, okay? So most of the things that I've built don't last a decade. And in some ways, I'm a little jealous of the people that make cars, right? Because I keep cars for a really long time. It's a quality thing to build a physical object and have it last for 10 years or more. That's pretty amazing. Software doesn't generally work that way, but the truth is, in order for anything to capture value, it has to solve the problem. And we can use a sketch to get to the heart of solving the problem. Because it's not enough for us to visualize the problem. Our customer, the person that has the problem, has to visualize it. And they may realize in seeing it that, wow, yeah, that is what I told you I wanted, but gosh, now that I've seen it, that's not what I want at all. The sooner you can recognize that what the customer tells you may not be 100% of the story, the sooner you can put something in front of them that gets their impression before you've wasted a lot of time, energy, and effort on building exactly the wrong thing. Now, the other thing that this does is it's not just the solution itself. It's not just the sketch of the solution and do you think this is going to solve the problem. But it also helps you begin to think about how am I actually going to solve this problem in terms of how it's presented to the user, because there are many layers between what the user experiences with the product and what actually happens underneath the covers. If you're building a physical object, most of the physical objects that we deal with are actually quite simple on the inside, mostly empty, in fact, because what you see on the outside, the experience that you're building, demands something completely different than the components that fit inside of it. In some cases, the what's inside drives what it looks like on the outside, but I think you get the idea. If you are thinking more deeply about how that person is going to interact with it with a sketch, letting them review it and give you feedback, you're going to be a lot more successful and prevent a lot of wasted time and effort. Seeing it before you build it is incredibly valuable, and so that is the S in mistakes. All right, moving on. Test. So test is where you validate the idea. Now, if you build a prototype and you put it in front of a user, that is a form of testing. So the sketch step and the test step are very closely related. In fact, they're so closely related that oftentimes if you sketch something, you need to then go and test it to find out that it's not the right thing so you can go back and sketch something else. The relationship between the two is quite iterative. But this is essential, right? Because if you just sketch it, if you're not getting feedback on it, you're not really testing it. You need that essential data point to understand, are you working on the right thing? To know that you're working on the right thing, you have to understand the goals that you're trying to achieve. And one of the things that testing can do for us is actually help us to align on, is this what you wanted? So not only putting it in front of a user and saying, hey, does this solve the problem that you would like to solve, but also asking the question both of our customer and of ourselves, hey, what were you trying to do here? What do you think is actually going to create the value? Because the other thing that commonly happens as we're building solution is you find something that does create value, but it's not the thing that actually creates the most value. And the only way to begin to tease that out is to test. And if you can save a ton of time by not having to build out an entire application or build a physical product to understand that relationship, you're going to be successful a lot more quickly. So you really want to do the absolute minimum in terms of that sketch and getting feedback from someone so that you can either confirm that you're on the right track or go all the way back to a sketch. Because if you go back to a sketch, it's hard to reuse a lot of what you've done. It is possible, but why put yourself through that pain, right? Let's try to build it right the first time so that we're setting ourselves up for long-term success. When you test, you're doing something to rigorously confirm whether or not you're doing the right thing. Because if we're going to do it, let's do it all the way. Let's be all in. Let's be confident that we're doing the right thing so that we can really create the value that we're chasing. All right, that takes us to adapt. So here's the thing. Adaptation to new information is absolutely essential throughout the process. Now, what's nice is that A happens after testing. And there's a reason that testing and adaptation are together. Because the truth is, what you need to do in order to create the value might have something to do with the sketch. It might have something to do with the idea. It might have a lot more to do with what you're focused on. And that's what I was kind of alluding to when I was wrapping up the discussion of test. You might discover that the thing you set out to do to create value was not the thing that you needed to do to create value. And as much as we would all love to discover that in the research phase by asking why 1,000 times, in real life, it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes you have to be in the middle to really understand. And so you have to account for that in the way that you approach the process. So after you've completed the testing, you're going to have some feedback. And that feedback is going to tell you, hey, go back to the sketch phase. Or it's going to tell you, wow, you're on the right track, but what you're after is not 100% the right thing, and you need to adapt your plan. Now, oftentimes that adaptation can happen on the fly without having to go all the way back to the beginning of the process. And I think that's really the quintessential component of adapt. See, oftentimes, if you're setting out on a journey of a long distance, like let's say you're on a ship, the ocean is very wide, and in order to reach your destination, you need to go in the right direction. But you may need to route around some obstacles in the way. Well, the concept of adapt is at the core of that, because you haven't lost sight of your far-reaching goal. You've just had to go around some obstacles, and that's what adaptation is at its core. It's knowing where you're going, constantly improving or trying to point the ship in the right direction, and doing it in a way that allows you to continue to reap value, because we want to avoid building the entire product before we understand the value that we are creating. And so adapting isn't just about, am I working on the right thing, but it's getting started before we know the complete answer, and it's using what we learn along the way to refine and improve what it is that we're building from a value creation standpoint. And the biggest, most important word in this phase is iterative. We may not get it right on the first shot, but as we learn along the way, we can refine what's important and repeat until we get there. Because we're on the right track, we've got the right long-term goal, we just need to make some refinements in order to achieve our long-term goal. Adapting allows you to maximize the value that you'll create in the solution. Because you can create value by working on the right problem, but we all know that some solutions are really better than others. All right, that takes us to the K, kickstart. Now, some of you may be familiar with a company formed a number of years ago called Kickstarter, and the entire purpose of that company was to allow companies to get started selling their product. And that's really inculcated in the selection of this word. It was, in my case, a very fortunate coincidence, because I like kickstart as a way to think about this. We were talking about this during the adapt phase, right? This concept of I'm working on the right thing, I'm working toward the right goal, but I need to make some modifications. And kickstart really is this idea of starting forward motion. I mean, the term kickstart comes from starting up a motor on like a bike that doesn't have an electric starter, right? There's a fork you pull out and you jump on the bike and you literally are kick-starting it. And that means to create action, to create motion. And you're going to learn as you're getting that motion, but you're taking the action to create real-world value. So we talk about adapt because we want to create the right level of value. But right along with kickstart, it's this idea of starting to build a real solution with the value that you've already identified. So perhaps you understand, look, there's 5 iterations beyond the real world value production, but we're not going to wait for those 5 steps to be completed before we release the product, because you're also going to learn a lot along the way. And this is really valuable. This is how you take fumbling around with AI and turn it into something that is solving a real world problem. You get started. And with AI, it's far more easy to get started with a product than ever before. This is where your strategy becomes reality, and we have helpers now, like never before. You have the power to have an impact in ways that just a few years ago weren't really possible. And so we're turning potential value into real value by kickstarting the process, creating the real thing, making an offer, putting it out there for people to buy, giving them a chance to work with it and see what it does. Now, evaluate is subsequent to the kickstart process, because you have to start actually doing something. But then once you've done it, you need to continue to evaluate what you've done. There are so many dimensions to the work that we do each and every day. When you start selling a product, your problem may not be with the product. It may be with the support of the product. It may be with something downstream. It may be distribution. There are so many places for things to go haywire. So you need to evaluate that solution to understand, where can we improve? Where can we make this better, both from a pure product or solution standpoint, but also in how you're conveying that solution to the customer, how you're getting it in their hands, how you're deploying it, how you are using that thing to create value. It allows you to get insights. After you've kickstarted the project, the program, the product, the solution, there's going to be important data that you can measure. That's what evaluation is about. To do this the right way, you have to come into it with some thought. You need to sit down and think about what actually matters for delivering the value. And you can use the previous phases where you've collected information to sort of hone in on what matters from a measurement standpoint. But the important thing is that you start knowing what you're going to measure, you measure what you set out to measure, and you search constantly for new ways to measure and evaluate what you did so that you can make it better. Why does it matter? I'll take it from the Mythbusters. I love this saying from Adam. The difference between playing around and science is taking measurements. It matters. Which brings us to the final S, sustain. Now, look, I'm a lean guy, so you can't leave the last S off. You got to have mistakes, plural, right? It's not just one mistake. We make mistakes regularly through the process. And once you've created a product, once you're measuring the performance of that product and you get better at delivering that product and creating value, that's not enough. It's not enough on several levels, because there's so many ways that you can improve a product after it's released. The important thing is to not stop finding value. If you can create value in continuously improving the product, that is the right thing to do, because I guarantee you, if you have competitors, they're going to try to improve their product. They're going to try to make their product better, and you have to as well. In fact, the game is to create value, and to create value more often, most often, and in the shortest time possible. And the reality is, if you want to solve a problem and solve it well, improve an existing solution rather than create an entirely new one. So sustain is really about making sure that you're not just solving the problem for today, you're solving the problem for tomorrow, and you're finding ways to better solve that problem at every possible opportunity. And the way that we do that is to continuously assess, to measure, to quantify, to ask more questions, to understand what it is that is at the core of the value and how we can improve it. That's what sustain is all about. And the lean processes really are about finding just that little bit better way to do what it is in solving the problem. Continuous improvement is at the heart of your long-term success, and if that is not a part of what you're focused on, you're not going to be successful. I love that using this acronym does several things for us, right? Because the truth is, we are all going to make mistakes. In fact, many of us, myself included, make mistakes on a regular basis. That's a part of life, actually. But I want to take this word mistakes and turn it into something totally different. It's about creating opportunities. In fact, if you think about mistakes in terms of what we get out of it rather than how it makes things bad, you can really turn this on its head. So I want you to think about not only It's okay to get out there and try to solve a problem and make mistakes in the process. Think about the acronym MISTAKES and how you're doing that to ensure that you're on the path to success. And if you look at all of the ways that you can use mistakes, we'll go back to the very beginning. AI can help you map. There are ways to do that. AI can help you do the research. AI can sometimes even do the sketch for you. Testing? Oh my gosh. We've had automated testing for as long as I can remember. Why do it by hand if you can automate it? Adapting? You can find a better way to solve that problem. AI can help you determine how to adapt what it is that you're working on. You want to get started? You want to launch a program? My goodness. From marketing to research to telemetry to measurement to analytics to just raw data capture. Oh my goodness. AI is incredible at these things. You want to understand what the data means? AI can help you with that. You want to understand how to make it better? Continuous improvement? Absolutely. AI can help you do that. Now, there are right and wrong ways to go about this, but the reality is you want to use the artificial intelligence tools to accomplish these goals, because if you do this well, you're going to create value. And that's why we're here. We want to solve problems and make things better. And it's at this point that I want to emphasize, when we talk about the framework, there is a process of moving between the steps. I think in my mind, building a solution is not going to simply be running through each of these steps and getting it right the first time. In fact, you're probably doing it wrong if you only have to touch each letter once. If you wait until you know, you're probably too late. And so the other part of the mistakes framework is recognizing that it's okay to make mistakes, right? Map it, but don't spend too much time mapping it. Research it, but don't spend too much time researching it. Get the sketch out there. Start learning. If you find out you're on the wrong track when you do the sketch, go back and do some more investigation. Do just enough to get to that next step at every phase. Because in life, technology and the way that we live continues to accelerate, and the speed is constantly increased. This framework can do critical things to help you grow and do the right things. If you think about mistakes and you use this framework, I guarantee you're going to see some differences. You're going to be more aware of what it is that you need to do. You're going to be thinking about this framework at every step of the game. That's going to make you sharper. It's also going to help you with problem solving because you're going to be thinking about the next phase even before you get there. If you're like me, sometimes just getting the confidence to get to the next step is that critical step. Knowing that you can move on to the next step and that it's okay to go to the previous step, that's pretty great because now I have a process. And when someone comes in and says, you acted too soon or your plan wasn't detailed enough, well, no, here's my plan and it's okay to go back. In fact, most often, the things that hold us back are things that are easily fixed. So don't let that happen. Don't let that slow you down. And if you do that, you're going to get more resilient, right? Because you're going to know how to respond. When it doesn't work, now it's not a great big tragedy. You can say, well, we'll just go back to the previous step and try again. You're going to get more creative because now you're having a conversation with the AI. You're working with your team. You're thinking about things at multiple different levels. You're going to be a better decision maker because you'll be considering the entire landscape, not just focused on one little piece of the pie. If there's one thing I've learned, it's be cross-functional. Be a learner of the entire process. Even if your job is just testing, understand all of the steps. That's going to motivate you to do a better job and to help your colleagues to build a better solution, because if we don't solve the problem, it doesn't matter what your role is. We're all out of a job. But really the most important is this will help you move faster. So here's my call to action, guys. And both of you are probably already signed up for the newsletter. But if you're not signed up for the newsletter, now is your chance, because what I'm going to be doing next is sharing with you my offer for the Mistakes online course. I'm calling it the Mistakes Business Pro course. And what I'd like to do is share with you all of the techniques behind each of these framework items to make you successful with AI. So we'll dive in. We'll learn about the different AI tools that can help us achieve success in using the framework, so that we're able to create the real value, so that we're able to move the needle. Instead of just doing technology for technology's sake, we're actually making a real difference in the lives of our customers, solving the problem that they need help with, instead of just having shiny object syndrome. The point of the framework is to create lasting success for you and enduring value for your customers. Because the reality is, whether you are working in a corporate environment, whether you are releasing a product, or you're going into business for yourself, the way that we get ahead as a society is by solving problems for each other. And the better the job you do of solving the problem, the more successful you're going to be in the marketplace. All right, so we've got just about 10 minutes left. Love to take any questions that you all have. It's been really fun to go through this. I think I'd love to hear your thoughts and questions if you have any, and if not, we can close out the session a little early today, but it's been a delight for me to take you through this. I can't tell you how much I really love this framework. Now, we all love our own creations, of course, but you know, when I had the idea months ago, there were so many inspirations for the framework. All of the things that I've learned over the years really come together to build this. And there are so many elements in the mistakes framework that tie directly to core disciplines. I'm a big fan of DevOps. I love Lean. I love UX research. There's so many techniques behind this framework. And these are the modern day solutions that are out there for making these things work. And I didn't get any of this stuff in college. And the reality is, I know that there are many others out there that are in the same boat. They're not playing with a full deck. They need this critical information to be successful, and I want to help you get there. So, Taha, thanks for putting your question out there. In terms of the AI tools and their use cases, where they fit into the framework holistically, that is a big part of what I've plugged into the online course. In fact, not only do I tell you what AI tools are going to be critical for achieving each of those steps, I actually show you exactly how to use the tool. In many cases, there's some nuance around the prompting. There may be a set of tools that are appropriate for one step of the framework that are wildly inappropriate for another. And then there are methods that we need to bring in to ensure that we're not making mistakes with the AI. There, in fact, is a right way to do research with artificial intelligence. There are right ways to do sketching and prototyping and going to launch to kickstart your program using these AI tools. And that's what I go in depth about from an implementation standpoint. But I can tell you, from a strictly AI tooling standpoint, there are more tools than you could possibly ever need that are available in the marketplace. In fact, I think in my own experience, what I've discovered is often you don't need a big bag of tools. Particularly as we talk about large language models, these large models have a lot of information in them, and you can tease out a lot of what you need with only a few tools if you just know how to use it the right way. Now, if you've seen the freebies that are out there, 5,000 prompts that you need to be successful. Yeah, absolutely. There are prompts that are more useful than others. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of the prompts that I use are simply too good for me to just drop it out on Twitter and give it away. There's tremendous value, but there's also prompts that aren't as simple as just drop in the prompt, because these tools work differently than most people anticipate. When we talk about our typical experiences with technology, oftentimes we expect that the technology either works or it doesn't. But the practical reality is that we built a machine that acts a lot like a human, and humans make mistakes. So AI makes mistakes. And so it's not just the prompt, it's how you use the prompt that matters. And so if I just gave you the prompt, I wouldn't be doing you the real service. We have to dig in and get our hands dirty and actually understand how to use that tool the right way. And it takes time to do that. It's not an overnight thing. But the course really helps facilitate that, because not only can I show you how to use the tool the right way, but you'll also have a way to come back to that again and again to look at it and be sure that you've built it into your practice and that you're using it the right way. You also brought up the use cases point of things, and I think that's another valuable component of this. As a part of the course, what you'll be getting from me is not only the prompts and here's how to use AI from a practical sense, but here are all of the use cases that I've collected over time and how AI can help and solve the problems. Because it's not just applying the AI to the framework, it's also applying the AI to the things that you are doing. There are better and worse places to apply the AI, and if anything bears that out, it's the report that Ethan contributed to. Ethan Mollick worked on that BCG experiment to understand, are people more productive with the AI and where does it fall apart? So that's a critical part of really building out the course. And, the truth is we need to spend some time together so that I can ensure that you're getting the value out of the course. And so the course not only provides the raw video and the experiments and the tests of getting your hands dirty and using this technology, but it also allows us to directly interact with each other. Included in the course is an hour-long session with me on a weekly basis in a group setting so that we can learn from each other, share tips, and really hone the craft of using AI to solve the core conflict, to solve the core problem that we go after. So the Pro course is going to be launched through the newsletter this week. I'll be turning out the newsletter over the weekend. So you'll get that in your inbox, and I'll provide details on the course and an overview of the mistakes framework in the newsletter. And in the newsletter link, you'll be able to go and sign up for the course. Now, incidentally, earlier today, I actually did drop the course. It is available at aimistakes.com. I have placed a button on the home page for you to go through and sign up for the course and go ahead and get enrolled for the course. So if you know this is the right thing for you at this moment and you just want to sign up, that's available for you to go today and sign up. The course is structured to release the content each week. Each of the 9 weeks, you'll see new content drop. The very first week is on mindset, because mindset is crucial to being successful in using this technology. And then the subsequent 8 weeks, we spend a whole week on each of the letters in the framework to make up the entirety of the 9 weeks program. So you're getting several hours of content each week. You're getting time with me in a group setting so that we can work through and help you get maximum value out of the course. And it also involves a community that I'm building on the back end of this. So everyone that signs up for the course is serious about the value that they get. They're serious about creating value with their time. And it's really great to get connected with others that are doing the very same thing. So I've got a preliminary community built out on the platform that will allow us to communicate, and that will iterate and change over time. The last thing I want to share with you guys, if you sign up for the class, you're not just getting the class for today, because look, the AI changes constantly, as I pointed out at the beginning of the discussion. I will be consistently updating the curriculum to reflect the emerging changes over time. So the course will stay up to date, and you will perpetually be able to look at those updates on the course as I am updating them. So if I spend the time to update the course, you will get those changes automatically as a part of having a membership in getting that course. The other real advantage is that because you're in the community, we can share things with each other. We're all working on projects all the time, and what better solution than to be able to interact with other folks that see the value in this and are doing great things with the technology. So with that said, boy, I tell you what, I've got a lot of things to play with. Christian, that's a really good point. You know, going back to that Twitter, I got a chance to play with DALL-E 3 today, and I was even tweeting about it earlier. I tried to have it generate the framework. It didn't turn out very well, but by golly, it's pretty amazing what it can do already. And these things are going to continue to get better and better all the time. So if you're not ready to buy the course, you're thinking about it. If you are looking for coaching, if you're looking for mentorship, if you just want to get together and have a chat, I also have a button on that homepage. You can grab a 30-minute session with me. Let's get together and talk about it, right? Let's find value. There are so many opportunities for us. I'm really excited about our future with AI, and we're just at the very beginning of this journey. But we don't want to miss the opportunity to get ahead, because if you can master this technology today, you'll be the expert tomorrow, because it's going to take time for this technology to grab hold. And if you can be the expert, even amongst your peer group, that's going to be really valuable for you in terms of creating value for yourself and in terms of creating value for others. Because at the end of the day, that's why we're here. We want to create value and make the world a better place. Listen, I want to thank you guys for coming along. Really enjoyed the time. Feel free to reach out, drop me a note, sign up for the newsletter. I'd love to hear from you. And I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time.